Hey there, my name's Niandra, and in this video I'll be giving some tips for Mercy when playing with and against each tank. So let's start with Orisa. One common theme in this video will be the idea of prioritising natural terrain and the environment over your team's shields. This is because shields are often placed at choke points and in locations likely to face enemies, while Mercy wants to reduce the amount of angles the enemy team gets on her. For example, on Hanamura point A, the shield usually goes here, and if Mercy positions directly behind it, she'll be exposed to widows across. If she peeks from here instead, that previous view is eliminated. As Mercy, keeping distance from allies is highly recommended because it means the enemy has to put more effort into getting to her, and allies are likely to make use of shields to do damage safely. This kind of thing is especially important now after many of the in-game shields were made weaker, and against certain team compositions just get deleted in like seconds. Although I don't consider her super high priority, Orisa can be a really solid damage boost target, especially if your DPS are generally close quarters based. Out of all the tanks, she actually has the furthest range when damage drop off is taken into consideration. Against Orisa, my main advice would be to just reiterate what I mentioned in my common mistakes video and remind everyone that Halt will punish you for positioning too close to allies, which is another point in favour of natural terrain over shields. If you super jump and hover above your team with Angelic Descent, it's very easy to get dragged back down, but say you super jump and use it to get to high ground, you'll have a much easier time dodging it. It can be worth damage boosting allies, especially those with bursts like Hanzo and Roadhog when they're attacking enemy shields to break them quicker. Just keep in mind there's no real hit markers for Mercy when this happens, so you will have to actively look out for it, and you also don't get any ult charge, but it still benefits the team overall. I suppose I'd make an exception if I was very close to ult, like get those little ticks of ult charge from other allies, then focus on shield breaking once I had Valk. Going for Orisa's supercharger during Valkyrie can be worth it since your increased movement may allow you to get angles on bongos behind shields, but definitely prioritise the team and consider the beam downtime because by yourself it takes 10 shots to destroy. Because Mercy's pistol is projectile, you can shoot and switch back to the beam before they land, and I love doing this to save half a second. Next, Roadhog, and most of your interactions, while important, are fairly simple. For the most part, just watch for landed hooks and flick your damage boost onto him. Unless Hog's seriously in trouble, I'll often interrupt my healing on him to go for the blue beam, especially against tankier enemies. In clearly lost fights where it's just me, one other ally and little to no chance of getting out alive, I try to damage boost them instead of healing to avoid giving the enemy more health to burn before they kill us. Roadhog is one I especially push this with because he's so easy to feed and stagger with due to his vape addiction. If he's already used Take a Breather, I may not want to keep him alive long enough for him to get his next one. Observing Roadhog during his ultimate can be useful, but it doesn't have a friendly voice line, so it's easy to miss if you aren't tracking him. Roadhog can't self-heal during it, so he'll appreciate you watching his health bar, and more so if there's enemies against a wall, but damage boost can be worth it too, especially if your Hog's hitting a fortified Orisa. No, seriously, she will just melt. Against Roadhog, it's primarily just respecting the 20-meter range of his hook by playing out of sight and being aware of potential flanks. For example, if your team has a Sigma shield down, Roadhog might just try to walk around it thanks to his high self-sustain. He's a big reason why I push for natural terrain over ally shields because Roadhog's good at breaking them, and Hook will likely be off cooldown once it's destroyed. Overall, it's really crucial to push the aspect of Mercy that allows herself to beam people while looking in other directions. Also, if you are caught in enemy Roadhog's ult, it can be worth holding Angelic Descent and the back key for just a bit more control over movement. Next, Winston. He's normally ran with Diva, sometimes Hammond, and Mercy's weird when it comes to dive. Her mobility allows her to keep up with them the best, but Mercy's healing isn't great at stabilising two aggressive tanks. If you're running Mercy with a main healer, your tanks need to be aware of where that other support is positioned. For example, if Anna's here and we're here, I'll tell my tanks over voice, hey, be careful, it's just me healing you. If you're running Mercy with an off healer, for starters, just good luck. But no, it can work, but you need to be extremely aggressive and coordinated, or be against an enemy team that isn't. Basically, your team has to win the fight quickly before your lack of healing becomes an issue, and damage boost is a great tool for achieving that. On my alt account streams, I've played a lot of games at Plat Diamond level recently, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I think dive is often a trap at mid ranks because of how much more coordination it needs compared to other tank compositions. The reason I'm mentioning this in a Mercy Tips video is because she's one of the best heroes at noticing bad dives. They go in, my beam's on Winston, and it's immediately obvious to me that Diva split off. Don't be afraid to say, hey, you guys aren't sticking together, try to play closer, or suggest alternatives like Zarya or Reinhardt. Winston's also a fantastic damage boost target in general because his DPS isn't super great but can hit multiple people at once. If he's in a 1v1 against a squishy that doesn't have high burst, I really try to push damage boost even if he's somewhat injured, then heal once he's victorious. Against Winston, your main way of playing around him is tracking him, his leap ability, and the position of distant allies. Once we see him jump, we know we can reposition and have a few seconds before he can follow. If Winston's smart, he'll save jump for your guardian angel, so it's crucial to have another fly path in mind as you travel, especially if he tries to body block you from reaching it. One really good method can be fly to high ground, wait for him to follow, drop down, then fly back up once he's also on the floor. Next, Diva, and as a damage boost target, she's great at short range but basically worthless at a distance due to her extremely high damage drop off. Also remember to heavily prioritise baby Diva with damage boost so she gets her mech back quicker and that she'll be resurrected in baby form. It can be worth lingering your heal on her after the immunity animation wears off until she's safely remech'd. Against Diva, although her damage tickles at long range, a single hit will be enough to stop Mercy's health regeneration from kicking in. Taking into consideration her booster buff, your method for playing around her will be just keep moving and twist yourself around terrain via the bunny hop to break line of sight long enough to let health regeneration kick in. Even with buffed mobility, it's really easy for Diva to feed, like super easy, due to hitbox sizes. I try to give allies like Zarya, Symmetra and Moira hard damage boost priority when I see Diva get near them, but if you are damage boosting non-beam allies, just remember to flick to heal during her defense matrix animation. Next, Reinhardt, and like Orisa, it's worth prioritising natural terrain over his shield because if your Rein goes for a fire strike, which he likely will while building ult, he'll drop it. It's actually really important for Rein to be aware of this because if you're healing him while low, he can easily die from like a random pot shot, so don't be afraid to tell him to keep his shield up. You now have to damage boost Rein as he shoots his fire strike, not when the damage lands. If you see the animation and you're not already damage boosting, it's almost certainly too late. At the beginning of attack or defense, I go find him, boost the fire strike, track the 6-second cooldown in my head, and try to boost the next. During the rest of the match, however, it's not something I highly prioritise anymore because without coordination, it can easily lead to a lot of beam downtime. For example, compare 4 seconds of damage boost on Soldier versus 4 seconds of Rein with his shield up waiting for him to throw it. Against Reinhardt, outside of his ultimate and a lucky charge that clips 2 pixels of your wing, you shouldn't really interact with him. If you're flying to an ally being attacked by Rein, make sure you cancel GA early to keep distance, and if you're flying through an objective, be aware of his position and if he can afford to take swings. In regards to Earth Shatter, it has a horizontal range of 20 meters, 2 vertical, and goes through the payload, while Mercy's beam length outside of Valkyrie is 15. The key to playing around it lies in positioning above, which Super Jump can help with, or around corners, because with a Lucio, enemy Rein can just walk past your shield and ult. A Reinhardt that has Earth Shatter tends to not use Fire Strike as much because he does not need the ult charge, but positions and pushes up a lot more aggressively. Once I begin to notice those signs, I tell my team to be careful and adapt my positioning. Last of all, remember that Mercy and Zen are the only supports who can heal through shields. Allies playing aggressively and pushing past enemy shields is usually fine, maybe even a great play, but I always let them know if they've cut themselves off from our other support, especially if it's a tank, because as I said earlier, Mercy's healing is just a little bit weak for keeping up aggressive tanks. Next, Zarya, and as I said in my DPS pairing guide, I like to keep Zarya and Hanzo synced with each other in terms of ult charge so we have the combo ready. Since Graviton Surge generates a lot slower than Dragon Strike or Pulse Bomb, she can absolutely be worth hard pocketing, and even outside of combos, a high charge Zarya is definitely worth prioritising. In the last few VODs I reviewed, I noticed the user didn't look at the scoreboard very often, and I can't recommend it enough as Mercy in general, but it's especially useful for pushing this more tactical side of damage boost. Like, if Hanzo's got ult and Zarya's at say 90, giving her that little extra push is just so useful. Her bubble can be great protection during a res, and asking Zarya over voice chat will increase the chances of you getting one. Also, keep in mind, the bubble only lasts for 2 seconds while res is 1.75, so it's really important to have fly paths lined up to get away afterwards if it's risky, and be super careful if she bubbles you very early. Like, if she does it way too early and you know it's not going to last the whole res, don't be afraid to chicken out. Like, it's better to waste the bubble than be down 2 instead of 1. Against Zarya, be careful about damage boosting allies that are shooting into bubbled enemies, but there's also a handful of exceptions. If you know the target is low as they get bubbled, damage boost may be better because you'll break it quicker, and the charge likely won't matter when you know your ally can confirm the kill afterwards. This is especially good against Zarya herself, who doesn't have a whole lot of survivability besides her bubble. A great example of this would be you're attacking the end of Route 66 and she comes out of spawn during a stall. Besides that, enemy Graviton Surge will be one of the highest priority ults for you to track. At the moment, Mercy shines best when paired with main supports due to her not so great healing output, but it will leave you without a defensive ult. You really need to look at how aggressive the enemy Zarya is playing and constantly ask yourself how long has it been since the last grab. I frequently watch my allies to see if they're closely grouped together and call out for them to split up over voice if they are. If you're running Mercy with Zen or Lucio, this is a lot less of a problem, although there is a slight chance you guys lost the fight way before she was able to get grabbed from lack of healing. Next, Sigma, and in regards to his ultimate, you can damage boost the initial lift up, but not the damage from the slam back down. It can be worth keeping your beam on him afterwards though, because Sigma should be aware of who he's lifted up and have high priority kill targets in mind. His shield can be great protection during a res, but Sigma needs to be aware that you're using it because once deployed he can reposition it at any time. If you ask him to reposition it for a res, keep in mind he'll need a few seconds to retract and replace it. Against Sigma, it's really crucial to keep your distance from allies, your second support especially, when you suspect he has ult, and honestly in general because his primary fire has splash damage that can bounce off corners. As for using Valkyrie to counter Graviton Flux, I haven't tested it enough to confidently recommend, but if it is active, I personally try to body block high priority allies like supports and squishies with the flight movement, and that I have been having good success with. It can be dangerous, so I really need to be aware of what the enemy team is running and have a fly path targeted for immediate escape if the damage on me gets nasty. Last of all, it's Wrecking Ball, and when he's on my team I treat him like Tracer. If he's playing near me, I'll give him heals and boosts, but I won't heavily go out of my way to attend to him. Chasing Wrecking Ball can easily lead to a lot of beam downtime if he's constantly repositioning while I try to catch up. If I do reposition to heal him, it's really crucial to keep my beam on as many people for as long as possible while doing so, although keep in mind, communicating with your Wrecking Ball will fix both of these things. Damage boosting his ground pounds can be great and very easy to react to. Also, if Wrecking Ball is just spinning around, it can be worth boosting that too because he already gets decent ult charge from knocking into people. If you're running Mercy, Wrecking Ball and an off healer, I would honestly probably just switch off her because someone is likely to end up neglected. Either I can't give my team the attention they need, or Wrecking Ball spends most of the game camping health kits and returning from spawn. Against Wrecking Ball, it is absolutely crucial to minimise the time to kill on him via heavy damage boost usage, so watch for allies attacking him. As I covered in my common mistakes video, learning when Mercy should damage boost injured allies over healing them is essential to learn, and Wrecking Ball is the character you want to push it the most with. This is because of his extremely high stall potential that can easily buy time for the rest of his team to get back to points. Also remember that his mines can get in a lot of really weird places like the ceiling or corners of terrain, which can easily hit your wings during Valkyrie, a super jump, or just in general while pocketing Pharah. And that is all from me this week. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to check out my Patreon where I do Mercy VOD reviews for $5 and custom egg drawings for $3. So yeah, go take a look at that and have a nice day.